The hunter genre, much like Souls-likes, can be a very difficult game. It requires a lot of knowledge on the game systems as well as fights, or previous knowledge playing other hunter games, to really be able to excel. But there's a lot of reasons that lead me to believe Wild Hearts isn't really that hard of a game. And whether you agree with me or disagree with me, I think it's important that we talk about whether or not it is a hard game so that people who are wanting to join in, who maybe have never actually played a hunting game, can see what they could expect when they pick up the game for the first time and start to try to play it. One of the first things that actually led me to start thinking about whether or not Wild Hearts is a hard game is the amount of people I see asking for help on certain fights. Now, this could just be either because the fights are too hard, or because they are really frustrating and having an extra person there is just a nice comfort so that you aren't actually dying immediately when you go down. Now, I myself am a bit of a weirdo and tend to not ask for help when playing these kinds of games. Really, the only bit of multiplayer I play going through it is either with a buddy of mine who is also going through it, or towards the end game when I find myself needing specific materials and then going back and hunting those kimono or monsters with somebody else who is just fighting those for the first time. Now, that being said, most of the people I've been helping definitely know the game and know their weapon to a certain extent, but they tend to struggle with certain small things such as actually building kirikiri, or knowing the specific counters of kimono, or their fight patterns, or simply enough are just learning a new weapon and are still trying to get those combos and attack patterns down. Now, the most common hunts I see people asking for help are on these, what I tend to call extreme difficulty jumps, where the few hunts leading up to them are pretty easy. You're able to just kind of beat them without really thinking about it, and then you move on to these extreme difficulty jumps where they just smack you down, such as Lava Back. Lava Back was a very tough kimono for me to fight for the first time, and I came very close to that specific kimono being the first one to actually make me fail a hunt. Thankfully it didn't. But I've seen that this game tends to follow that trend. You go through the first little bit, Rage Tail, Sap Scourge, and Spine Glider if you're just doing the story, and then you fight Lava Back, who is extremely tough for somebody who doesn't quite understand key points of the game or aren't actually utilizing the entirety of the kirikiri. But then you go back to this extremely easy, now you're fighting, I actually don't remember what comes after Lava Back in terms of before Deathstalker. Ice Tusk and Cobalt Lava Back, who, it's gonna sound weird, but I find Cobalt Lava Back an easier fight than just straight up Lava Back, into now you're fighting Deathstalker. And then Deathstalker beats you down, one of the cooler design kimonos, and definitely has a lot of the appeal of what I look for in a fight. But then you're back to just very easy fights until Amaterasu, and then Golden Tempest and Ember Plume, where one of those I definitely feel like is harder than the other, but that's just me. But then you get to the Deeply Volatile, and this is where I think the wall really hits. Because as you are seeing, this is the culmination of me farming Deeply Volatile Rage Tail for an hour before I finally got my first kill on him. I was doing a lot of armor-clad farming and a bunch of other stuff before I really wanted to take all of the Deeply Volatiles on, and this is the culmination of that. I sat there farming for an hour to be able to kill him. Do I think it was hard? Yes and no, leaning more towards no. It wasn't hard, it was just I would get impatient, or I wouldn't take my time, or I would just try to rush in and then get one shot out of nowhere, or combo strung down to a little bit of a health or not enough, and it pops my resurrection within the first, 30 seconds of the fight. Now, these are all reasons why I think the game definitely could be hard, but one or two of the reasons why I think the game isn't hard are the kirikiri and seeing what speedrunners can accomplish. So the Kitakuri have a massive impact on the difficulty of a hunt. They tend to trivialize a lot of the hunts if you are able to bring in specific Kitakuri combinations to those kimono. A great example is Lava Back. If you don't know, you can place a barricade right before any of his elastic arm attacks, and it will either fling him back or completely block it and then knock him down, which then leads him into a large amount of free damage. As someone who, starting off this game, never used the Kitakuri combinations, or at least didn't use them as much as I should have, this would explain a lot why I think Lava Back was your first massive wall, because if you just don't use those, he's way harder. And then if you do use those, the fight's completely trivialized and it just isn't really even fun. And speedrunners can actually show a lot of this because through using and abusing Kitakuri, there have been speedrunners who can pull off 0-second hunts. While technically this is 0-second quest timer before the monster even is able to roar, but it still is impressive to see that through just using even simple Kitakuri combinations and just a baseline understanding of how they work, you're able to pull off something that really shouldn't be done. And this isn't to say 0-second hunts aren't impressive. I still think they're very impressive, and they just look hilarious to me. I just feel like, you know, maybe use an external timer. I don't know. If you're a speedrunner or you know a speedrunner, that is a video idea I really want to talk about, is how speedrunning differs in Wild Hearts versus Monster Hunter. So if you do get in contact with me, because I'd love to have an interview and ask you questions. Anyway, even without traps, speedrunners are still able to pull off sub 2-minute hunts on what are supposed to be endgame monsters. Personally, I chalk this up to more the fact that the kimono in Wild Hearts seem to have really low HP values, where even just a few big hits from any of the weapons and you've already almost killed the kimono. And if you're a speedrunner who really knows your weapon and really knows the monster, you're able to really just abuse all of the little openings that those kimono have, versus someone who maybe doesn't know and goes for a move only to just get smacked out of the way, and now they have to go heal and increase their hunt times. Now, this entire video isn't a video to invalidate your struggles or make you feel worse about your gameplay. Everybody has struggled on hunting games at some point. I just think it is important to kind of sit here and assess why some people think it's difficult whereas other people don't. Because that's kind of the biggest thing on a conversation or argument or whatever you want to call it, debate. You have to take in both sides. So overall, personally, I do not think the game itself is hard. I think it has very hard points or very frustrating fights, but between actually using the Kitakuri and taking your time, and if need be, abusing Clawblade, I personally think even a noob to the Hunter genre could excel in Wild Hearts a lot more than they could in Monster Hunter. However, even I could be wrong. I've got a lot of time in Monster Hunter and a lot of time in Wild Hearts, so it's hard for me to get into that fresh to the genre viewpoint. So if you are new to the genre or don't have thousands of hours into Monster Hunter, Bold World Rise, and so on, I want to hear whether or not you think it's difficult, and why or why not. At the end of the day, this game is supposed to be fun, so whether you find it difficult or not, as long as you find it fun, that's kind of all that matters. Whatever gets you to keep playing this game, whether it's asking for help, taking some cheesy strategies into these extremely difficult jumps, or really just abusing the Kitakuri system, it doesn't really matter whether it's hard or not. It just matters that you're able to sit there and play the game and get through it the way that you see fit. So overall, I hope you enjoyed the video. I originally had a different idea planned, but here we are. I decided to just make this one and go from there and sit down for an hour and try to kill Deeply Volatile Ragetail. If you did enjoy it, I would appreciate it if you leave a like, if you shared this with people, maybe share it with somebody who's a little hesitant onto getting into Wild Hearts. I don't know why this one specifically, because it doesn't actually talk about Wild Hearts at all. Or at least doesn't talk about, you know, the game itself. It just talks about people who think it's difficult and people who don't. Okay, maybe don't share this one. I don't know. Leave a comment stating what you think. And in the end, I wish you all the best luck in all of your hunts. Take it easy.